The cafeteria of New Austin Preparatory Academy hummed with the energy that only elementary school kids could generate. Among the chaos of lunch trades and excited chatter, a group of fifth graders huddled around their usual table, their voices pitched with excitement as they watched a holovid playing above Tommy Marks's lunch tray. "Look at that sword technique," Tommy exclaimed, clutching his prized Marine action figure. The figure's tiny quantum-enhanced blade still glowed faintly in the cafeteria's bright light. The way he just cut through that fresh barrier like it was nothing. The holovid showed a Marine in full combat gear, quantum sword leaving trails of blue fire as it carved through what had once been considered impenetrable alien defenses. The other kids leaned in closer, their lunches forgotten. "My brother says the Commonwealth Elite Guard is way better," David Johnston, a sixth grader who often invited himself to their table, declared with all the authority of someone with an older sibling. "They've got the new Mark VII plasma rifles. Way more advanced than some fancy sword." Tommy's face flushed red. "No way. Melee Marines are the best. They turned the whole war around." "My dad says actually," a quiet voice interrupted, barely audible above the cafeteria noise. "I know some stories about the Texas Knights." Every head at the table turned toward Dwight Williams, known to everyone as Dit. He was pushing his mashed potatoes around his plate, not meeting anyone's eyes. Dit was always quiet, always in the background, which made it easy to forget who his father was. "Wait," David's voice dropped to a whisper, his earlier bravado vanishing. "You mean stories from your dad?" "Major James Williams." The table went silent. Even little Peter nearly dropped his juice box. Everyone knew about Major Williams, the legendary Texas Knight who had not only mastered quantum-enhanced combat, but had also managed to tame and ride one of the fearsome Dit beasts of Nerith. It was why everyone called his son Dit. Tommy's eyes were wide as saucers. "Your dad, he really rides a Dit beast into battle." Dit nodded slowly, a small smile forming. "Shadow, that's her name. Dad says she's faster than any ship when she's running across the void between stars. Her fur absorbs quantum energy, and when she roars," he made a sound that was somewhere between a thunderclap and a quantum drive spooling up. "Tell us more." Peter squeaked, completely abandoning his lunch to scoot closer. "Please?" Other kids from nearby tables were starting to drift over, drawn by the mention of Texas Knights. Even David had dropped his elite guard boasting, leaning in with poorly concealed interest. "Well," Dit said, warming to his audience, "did you ever hear about Master Sergeant Wilson and the Morgoth Gap?" Tommy's action figure clattered forgotten to the table, as Dit's voice took on the rhythmic cadence of a born storyteller, the same way his father told these tales during bedtime. "It was during the final push of the Human Consortium War," Dit began, his voice growing stronger. "One night, standing alone in a narrow pass between 3 colony ships and an entire alien assault force, the cafeteria seemed to fade away as Dit's words painted pictures of quantum fire and unwavering courage. None of the children noticed their lunches growing cold, too captivated by the beginning of a legend that would change how they saw the universe forever." Dit leaned forward, his voice dropping to just above a whisper, making the other kids lean in even closer. "Master Sergeant Wilson's sword had been in his family for 15 generations, he said, eyes gleaming. Each knight who carried it added their own memories, their own battles, their own soul to its quantum matrix." "What's a quantum matrix?" Little Peter whispered, hugging his juice box. "It's like," Dit paused, searching for words a fifth grader would understand. "It's like the sword remembers every battle it's ever fought. And when a knight holds it, they can feel all those memories, use all that power." Tommy's hand unconsciously reached for his action figure, its tiny replica sword seeming to pulse slightly brighter. "The consortium had thrown everything they had at the Morgoth Gap," Dit continued, making whooshing sounds as he gestured with his hands. "Drone swarms, plasma batteries, weapons that weren't even supposed to exist. But Master Sergeant Wilson," Dit stood up slightly, mimicking a warrior's stance. "He just wouldn't fall." A seventh grader from the next table over had quietly pulled up a chair, pretending he wasn't completely captivated by a fifth grader's story. "Dad says Wilson's power armor was breached in 17 different places." Dit's voice rose with excitement. "His quantum reserves were almost gone. But that sword sang." He made a humming sound that somehow captured the essence of quantum energy. Every time he swung it, it left trails of blue fire in the void. Every strike cut through their best shields like they weren't even there. Did he win?" Peter's voice quavered. Dit's expression grew solemn. "He saved them all. 30,000 civilians on those colony ships. Gave them time to escape. But he paused, looking down at his forgotten lunch. His heart couldn't take the strain. 15 generations of knights, all their power flowing through that sword and his body at once. Several of the kids had tears in their eyes. Tommy was clutching his action figure so tight his knuckles were white. But that's not the end of the story, Dit said, his voice lifting. See, after the battle, this consortium commander named Kex, he stole Wilson's sword. Thought he could claim it as a trophy. Dit's face showed exactly what he thought of that idea. For 3 years he tried to crack its quantum matrix, tried to steal all those memories, all that history. David, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. What happened to him? Dit's smile was pure Texas knight pride. 3 knights went to get it back. Dad was one of them. They walked right through Kex's defenses like they weren't even there. Their quantum spurs left trails of blue fire with each step, burning through everything in their path. He stood up fully now, pacing a few steps with exaggerated boot steps. Thump, thump, thump. That's all Kex heard coming down his hallway. 3 sets of boots, 3 Stetsons casting shadows, 3 knights coming to reclaim what was sacred. The cafeteria had grown unusually quiet, other tables falling silent as Dit's story carried across the room. When they found him, he tried to bargain. Offered them money, technology, anything they wanted. But you know what Dad said. Dit's voice took on a passable Texas drawl. He just looked at Kex and said, "The eyes of Texas were upon you, partner." A collective shiver ran through his audience. The sword now hangs in the memorial hall. Dit finished softly. Dad took me to see it once. It's still got all those memories, all those battles stored in its quantum matrix. And sometimes, late at night, they say you can hear it humming, singing the songs of 15 generations of knights. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the lunch monitors seemed caught in the spell of Dit's story. Then little Peter raised his hand like he was in class. "Dit," he asked timidly, do you think we'll ever be knights?" Before Dit could answer, a new sound cut through the cafeteria, the distinctive hum of quantum spurs against the floor tiles. Every head turned toward the cafeteria entrance, where a battle-scarred set of power armor stood, Stetson casting shadows even in the bright fluorescent lighting. Dit's face lit up. "Dad." Major James Williams's power armor seemed to fill the entire cafeteria doorway. Battle scars decorated its surface like a map of countless victories, and his quantum spurs left faint blue traces on the floor with each step. But it was his Stetson that drew every eye, somehow more impressive than any crown could ever be. "Howdy, young uns," he drawled, and several kids actually gasped. "Hope my boy's been telling the good stories." Dit beamed with pride. "I was just telling them about Master Sergeant Wilson's sword, Dad." "Fine tale," Major Williams nodded, then gestured to the imposing figure beside him that the children hadn't even noticed. "Speaking of tales, I reckon Sergeant Santiago here might have something to add." The cafeteria erupted in excited whispers. Even the lunch monitors were staring now. Sergeant Ron Santiago was almost as legendary as his quantum-enhanced Winchester rifle, which hung at his side like an old friend. Santiago touched the brim of his Stetson, his scarred face breaking into a warm smile. "Seems to me these young folks might want to hear about Outpost 7. Please." The word burst from a dozen young throats at once. Santiago pulled up a chair, his power armor adapting smoothly to the movement. "Well, now it was just me and my AI partner Hank, watching the red dust of New Amarillo swirl against the windows." The children sat transfixed as Santiago described his last stand against the Guarna battle droids. He acted out parts of the battle, his quantum spurs humming, as he demonstrated how he'd swung down to meet the first wave. Little Peter actually hid behind his lunchbox during the tenser moments. "There I was," Santiago continued, bleeding but still standing, Winchester in hand. Hank broadcasting on all frequencies as those mechanical varmints marched up the stairs. His voice took on that special Texas night tone that made every word feel like legend. "And you know what I told them?" The kids leaned forward as one. "Come and get it," Santiago drawled. "The eyes of Texas are upon you." Dit's father stepped forward then, his power armor humming softly. "What Sergeant Santiago's too modest to tell you is what happened next. How he held that position for 6 hours. How he took down 30 droids with nothing but his Bowie knife after his Winchester ran dry. How he kept broadcasting that message until every human colony within 100 light years knew that a Texas knight doesn't quit." Santiago ducked his head slightly, adjusting his Stetson. "Weren't nothing special. Just did what any knight would do." The rescue mission was something special though, Major Williams added with a grin. Riding in on our dit beasts, quantum spurs burning blue fire across the void. Shadow here took down half a droid battalion herself. As if on cue, a low rumble shook the cafeteria windows. The children rushed to look out, and there in the school's courtyard stood Shadow, Dit's father's famous mount. The dit beast's crystalline fur sparkled with captured quantum energy, and its 6 eyes glowed with ancient intelligence. "Son," Major Williams said to Dit, "time for your training session. Think your friends might want to come watch?" The resulting cheer nearly shook the ceiling tiles. As the children filed out excitedly, Tommy hung back for a moment, still clutching his action figure. "Sir," he asked Santiago nervously, Do you think any of us could really be knights someday?" Santiago knelt down, power armor ring softly, and looked the boy in the eye. "Son, being a knight isn't about where you come from or how strong you are. It's about what's in your heart. About standing your ground when everything says run. About remembering that the eyes of Texas are upon you and living up to that every single day." He touched the brim of his Stetson, and Tommy stood a little straighter. "Now come on," Santiago smiled. "Let's go see how a real quantum sword lights up the training yard." As they walked out into the sunlit courtyard, where Shadow waited patiently, and Dit was already climbing into the saddle behind his father, Tommy whispered to himself what every child there was thinking. We all dream of being one of them. The Texas Knights really are the stuff of legend. Above them, the red dust of New Austin swirled in the wind, and somewhere in the void between stars, quantum spurs continued to burn their blue fire across the darkness as the Knights carried on their eternal vigil. For the eyes of Texas were always watching, always remembering, and always inspiring the next generation of legends. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.